Hello and welcome to Berwick Speedway's Total Access Show with myself, 𝗕𝗶𝗰𝗲𝘀𝘀 and Greg Blair. Joining us this week is the gaffer, the man who picks the side, the man who's tracked the 7 riders for the 2025 season. It's Mr. Stewart Dickson. Stewart, the waiting is almost over. We're into March now. Spring has sprung and all that, and we're getting ready for the season to begin. You must be champing at the bit to get started now.
Good evening, guys. Yes, I am. I think the fact that we've had good weather the last few days and it looks like some decent weather continuing, we almost wish we were starting the fixtures in March. When we do start them in March, people say you're starting too early. Yeah, I've seen a forecast. Obviously, I'm keeping an eye on Leicester's at the moment because I'm doing a track, and it's like blanket sunshine till like a week on Sunday or something like that. So it's unfortunate sometimes the way it falls. But I think, like most people, when March comes around, I think you start feeling it a bit more. Riders are starting to fly in from Australia and into the UK, different countries, etc. And the buzz starts to pick up, yeah.
We heard last week on the show that we had 𝗕𝗱𝗱𝗀𝗀𝗀 and Bastian. They came over here for half an hour or something just to drop the equipment off and then head back over to Denmark again. But the guys, they've got the preparations are well underway with the riders. They've got all their equipment's there ready to go. It's in this country. So yeah, it's looking promising, the team, isn't it?
It is. It's hard to judge just how well we can do. It's like I think it's like most teams. There's an element of surprise. 𝗕𝗱𝗱𝗀𝗀𝗀's obviously got to be a lot of eyes on him. There's no doubt about it. He's the new number one. He comes with a reputation of being a very, very good fast rider, very brave, very hard rider, and one you think would take to the high banks of Berwick on bends 3 and 4. So I think the balance is good. If he can maintain the average of 850, which he comes in at, I think it'll do very well. And Craig Cook just has to do what he's been doing the last couple of seasons, just keep doing the same job. And I'm pretty sure the rest of the guys can back them up. I noticed that Sam Hagen and I think it was Daniel Hume had a practice at Workington the other day as well. So, as I say, March comes a time when folks start getting ready. But at this stage of the season, we're all full of hope, anticipation, and just fingers crossed that we don't come across any bad luck this year.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about anticipation there, Stewart. I don't think when we obviously ended the season pretty early last year, I don't think many would have envisaged the side that's been put together. There's a few curveballs. You've had to deal with a few curveballs. First of all, obviously, Rory was in the side. Then, obviously, through kind of personal circumstances, he came out the side. There's definitely a few curveballs in there. I don't think many would have imagined that Craig Cook, 𝗕𝗱𝗱𝗀𝗀𝗀 and Sam Hagen would have been lining up in Berwick colours next year. Has it been a difficult winter for that aspect in terms of new riders to the club and obviously getting the team together, especially with what happened to Rory? With Rory, sorry.
Aye, Scott, we had a plan going down, which was going to be Rory leading from the front. That was the plan. I mean, you talk to him and you hear how enthusiastic he is, even as the years he's getting on in the years, shall we say? But it proved he's still a top rider. We obviously knew about it a couple of weeks before it came to pass, in the media, etc. And Jamie was kind of well down the road, speaking to 𝗕𝗱𝗱𝗀𝗀𝗀, and I think the fact there was a tie-up at Oxford as well made it more appealing for him. He was going to come to both leagues, something I know a lot of foreign riders are looking for, is to do both leagues. Craig Cook came, we got word at AGM, myself and Jamie were sitting in the room. Drew Bain announced that they were not using Craig Cook, and I think at that time we I think we did about 4 or 5 signed at that time, and it was just, I dare say it was quite lucky, the fact that it was really only us in Plymouth, I think, that were still to put their teams together, or they were far down the road. And geographically, obviously, Berwick's a lot closer. I know he has said before Berwick's not one of his favourite tracks, but if he makes starts, which he can, and he makes some good gates, he'll score double figures for us on a regular basis, which is good. So it's the Rory thing was a bit of a curveball. Sam Hagen I'd been in a bit of dialogue with for quite a bit of time. It was just a case of trying to see if he would fix in, and obviously Craig Cook had spoken on behalf of Dale Wood, you know, and the way it fell when 𝗕𝗱𝗀𝗀𝘀 came in, we needed room for a 2-pointer. I know Dale's slightly older than the rest of them. You know, he's what you call I wouldn't say a seasoned professional, but he's only started racing for a couple of years now. I think he's as good as a 2-point rider as any of the other ones, you know, sort of thing. And the message for him will be use your strength and that sort of stuff on the first corner. You know, I wouldn't say experience over the young guys, but I would class him as a man, where the other riders, maybe 2-pointers, are all young kids coming up who will get better, don't get me wrong. But I think Dale can maybe use it, push himself about a little bit in the first bench, certainly in the reserves race. And I think the Berwick supporters will take to him very well.
And looking at, you know, you're saying about Dale Wood coming up, he's based with Cookie as well, isn't he? I mean, they do. Dale's been spannering for Cookie, so they've got a good friendship there, and they know how each other works. So for Dale to be in the same team as a guy like Cookie that he gets on so well with, and he knows everything that he does, that is just a massive bonus for not just the fans, but yourself, the promotion. It really is a great signing to have them two there.
Yeah, it's a win-win, I think, for the riders and for us. Whether they'll travel together, I'm not too sure. But obviously, I've seen a lot of Dale last year because he was covering the Leicester meetings home and away, mechanicking for Cookie. I know after speaking to Craig Cook, the last month of the season, he looked at Dale, and I know he changed something to do with his frames and his bike sort of thing, because Craig basically said, I'll not use the word he used, said he was getting a terrible ride on the bike. They'd done a bit of changing, and I think it coincided with his scores were a lot higher in the last month of the season when he was riding in the National League. So we're hoping he can take, obviously he knows the championship's a step up, but the fact that they come as a pair, I think that maybe help both of them. They can bounce off each other. Maybe when one is a bad night, hopefully they both of them don't at the same time.
Absolutely. And when we look at guys like, obviously Sam comes into the side as a British under-21 champion, Bastian's in there. We've seen what Bastian was capable of last year as well, but that there's potential in there, isn't there, for growth in the team, especially with the two riders that I've just mentioned there. We've seen 𝗕𝗱𝗀𝗀𝗀𝘀, we'll get to him in a minute, but really the kind of potential for Sam and Bastian is really endless. Really, it's as good as they want to be, isn't it?
Yeah, Sam should be looking to put, without being disrespectful, to put Daniel or Bastian to reserve. I would reckon around about May or June. You know, Sam, I think, you know, he'll probably see himself as maybe try to establish himself in the top 5. I know he went in the top 5 with Poole last year, and he struggled a little, but remember, he's still come on an average just over 5, so his scores couldn't have been that bad. But you know, very much a team event, but as the riders riding individually themselves as well when it comes to the averages. And I think Bastian and Daniel, for me, if they can stay in the main body of the team and consolidate their place where they are, that would mean that they were doing their job as well. And then Sam could maybe get a longer run at reserve than what he might anticipate to get. But knowing Sam, he'll be keen to push on. And if you get big scores at reserve, and hopefully he does, that inevitably will lead to moving into the main body of the team. But as you said, we could have Bastian there, or another case, it could be Daniel. So in that respect, I'm quite hopeful that we'll have a strong reserve helping Dale all season.
And looking at, you know, you're talking about Sam there, Stuart. One thing that I always think with Sam was towards the end of last season, maybe he didn't have the best, you know, towards the end, even though he won the treble with Poole. Poole's a different club compared to Berwick, so there'd be a little bit more pressure on him. The riders there were, you know, everybody was doing so well. So that would beat up Sam just that little bit, that, you know, that he wasn't being able to score the points that he would like, whereas the rest of the team are all jumping about and cheering because they're winning things. Coming to Berwick, where he's got that more of a friendly atmosphere, it's probably going to suit him down a bit better. The pressure's not going to be as high as what it was when he was down at Poole, is it?
It wouldn't be. You're right. I mean, it's different clubs, and it's two massively different tracks as well, shape, size, etc. I think, you know, he guessed it for us a couple of times, but he's no really raced for us for a whole season, shall we say, and get to know the Berwick feel-good factor, what I call it. I think it'll be able to allow just to come up here and carry on and do his job. I did listen to his interview, you guys, and he did mention last year, he touched on the fact that he lost a bit of form. So they know when they're not, you raced a bike, they know when they're not racing to their potential. But he's had his little break in Australia, you know, apart from 𝗧cie𝗁𝗹 try to fence someone on the home straight, you know what I mean? That was, apart from that, I think he had a decent tour, or shall we say, wee mini tour down under. I know it was curtailed a little, but to see him practicing again the other day at Workington, he comes with good backing, good equipment. He wants to do well, which is half the battle. He's keen to do well. He doesn't get any nonsense or any hassle in the pits. And to have the British under-21 champion in our ranks, I think it's quite a coup for Berwick, yeah.
Yeah, it's 100%. It's a coup, and as I say, there's plenty of potential there. Drew came into the side, and I think it was fair to say at the start of last season when we were having these types of chats, Stewart, and you're talking about the fluidity and the side, who could drop down, who could go up, and that kind of moving. Obviously, it didn't quite pan out like that, the way that the injuries ended up working, but most had kind of pinned the most likely to kind of drop down there is being Drew, for Bastian to kind of replace Drew. I think that's fair to say for everybody's kind of surmising at the start of the season, but he really came into his own. Drew last season, we've seen not just on track personality wise as well. He came out his shell a hell of a lot more at Berwick. Just seemed to be, when you're talking about the Berwick feel good factor, he definitely benefited from that, the off track side of things, the way the clubs run, and then you've seen the results on the track as well. But with that comes its own pressures, doesn't it, Stuart? Because now fans are expectant that we see the rider that beat Leon, that beat Chris Harris, that beat all these big guys around Shieldfield. So fans are expectant now. They expect Drew to be out winning races, and that in itself comes with pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would agree with your point, what you said with the fans. I also believe that Drew now expects to win races, and I think Drew was a bit of a mainstay in Heat 15 for us, certainly at home in the second half of the season. He knows he's obviously got two riders, shall we say, that are coming in a higher average than him. So, you know, the fight for Heat 15 will be, as I say, within the team, because, as I say, he got used to racing in Heat 15s. He won a few Heat 15s. If I'm correct, I think he got the fastest time of the season at Berwick last year, didn't he, in the championship? So we know he's very, very quick. I did stand and listen to the interviews in the centre green when you guys are interviewing them after the meeting, and I know for Leicester days he was talking a bit more loosely and a bit more freely than what we're seeing for Drew. He can be quite tense and nervous when about interviews. I think he thoroughly enjoyed Berwick. I think he's probably coming back to us. And I don't think he's raced for that many clubs that live in 6 consecutive seasons. He seems to be one of these riders that moves. I mean, he's been to a lot of tracks in his time for somebody of young age. But I'm hoping he can build on that season. I mean, I've always maintained when a rider's quick, you know, he's got the potential to go a bit further in the sport than maybe other guys have.
On track, he's also progressing as a person as well. He's been able to come out of his shell. And you know, can talk away, and he's no bother at all. And I think that is credit to what's happened around about Berwick. But you know, one man that you can always get a good chat out is Daniel. And you know, he was winning when he was at number 2. He was winning Heat 1s for fun last season. He was one that I was delighted to see that was coming back. And you can tell, you know, the travelling that he's going to be doing. Obviously, he's signed up for Sheffield as well. In the Premiership, but also, you know, coming back to Berwick and captaining the side, it's great to have Daniel back, because he really did get dialed in round the Shieldfield circuit.
Yep, he popped out, I think, in numerous times in Heat 1 and would win, you know, maybe off the inside gate sort of thing. I think Daniel will admit himself that he can be quite a frustrating rider. The fact he can go out and win Heat 1 and then he can run a last in Heat 8 sort of thing is something I think we need to try and address. He knows that. It's not as if I'm talking behind his back when I say that, because if you can go out and win Heat 1, you shouldn't be running a last in Heat 8. You know, when it's up against, no offence, but you're up against lesser riders. Let's not dress it up any other way. He's popping out in Heat 1 and beating 2 number 1s, something that not many people can do, but it shows you that they can. He needs to find, it normally is maybe 3 good rides a night, Daniel, but he goes missing in one of the races. And it could be that it doesn't matter if it's Heat 8 or it could be Heat 6 or Heat 10. I know that it's very close together at number 2 and you ride at home, but he always seems to have one race where he's kind of off it. See if he can put that other one race together with the other 3 that he does. Again, he can climb up the average again. You rightly say he comes back as a captain this year. I think he'll be fine because he's got that personality that goes with it, and he's a kind of good helping mixed guy in the pitch regardless. But I just thought that he would be a choice. I like the way he conducts himself, and as I say, I know he's been, but he's been flirting the reserve in the championship last couple of years, and obviously kind of constrained himself in the main body of the team. He needs to try and push on if he can a little bit, and as I say, finding more consistency in his racing, certainly at home. I says we'll put him in good stead, hopefully to put something on his average.
Do you think, Stewart, that Daniel's going to be one of these riders that will benefit from doubling up? Because I think last year when you looked at, he wasn't racing enough, really, wasn't he? Not so. Like when you see some of the other guys doubling up or racing abroad or whatever it may be, they seem to benefit from more track time. I think Daniel this season, the fact that it's with Sheffield from the start of the season, will definitely benefit him being on the track more track ready, really.
Yep, without a doubt. I think any rider will tell you that, that if they're racing regularly, they feel match fit. The clutch lever's a lot more natural for them sort of thing. They're turning up, they're racing, they get match fitter quicker. I mean, I've obviously looked through our team, and I'm saying to myself, well, Peter Kilderman and 𝗕𝗃𝗄𝗃 get the Premiership. Daniel's going to be riding in the Premiership as well. And I thought to myself, it's because obviously we know Berwick goes straight into a match at Glasgow on Friday, the 18th of April, I think it is. And I'm just looking to see where the guys have got a bit of practice, but obviously you need racing more than practice. But Daniel being busy and being on the bike more, I think, can only be beneficial towards him and to Berwick, in my thoughts. I agree with you on that one, yeah.
And just from your point of view, Stewart, you've made this team up. We all thought that last year's team was, a potential of a playoff side. And, if 𝗧cie𝗁𝗹𝗄𝗃's injuries came in and we never got to see that, everybody I've spoke to that has, especially when it comes to championship, has seen this Berwick side and has went, well, you guys are certainly going to be in the playoffs. Is that something that you're very confident about?
No, I'm actually not. I'm not saying that we're not a potential playoff championship side. As I say, I don't know what we're going to get for Peter Kilderman when he returns. He's. I'm not saying he's a gamble signing. He's a very, very, very good rider. If he can do the job that Marcel and Jamie think he can do, then I think we're on to a winner, and we could be very dangerous and very entertaining everywhere we go in the country. I don't want to say too much. I know you put me on the spot with the question, and I am playing it down because of last year there was a bit of hype because when I come in and the team looked pretty good, and then I know we had some wins and we started well, but ultimately we ended up at the bottom of the league where we didn't want to be. So I'm not going to commit myself to your very, very tricky question there and just say I'm hopeful we'll be challenging for the top 4 rather than saying that we're going to be okay.
You know me, Stewart.
I know. And you know me. That's why I've danced around that.
I feel as if I'm in a different universe where Greg Blair's asking tough questions and Stewart Dickson's playing stuff down. Something's happening in the universe somewhere where I think one's bitten twice shy and everything and all that, Stewart boy. But in terms of that as well, because last season we lined up with Louis Kerr and Rory Slane, and I think by all accounts, most would have looked at that as being a very good 1 and 5 within the league. But dare I say it, the Peter Kilderman and 𝗕𝗃𝗄𝗃 combination, I mean, Craig's proven. I mean, Craig had an excellent season last year. If you go back and look at hard facts, hard numbers, he had an excellent year last year with Workington as well, because it obviously led to Premiership call-ups, etc. With Oxford and Leicester, with yourself down there as well. So, I mean, it's not as if Craig's coming in on the back of having a bad season. He's racing, I think he averaged about 8.5 last year as well. Right. So when you look at that, Stewart, I mean, it's very important, isn't it, within this league? We've seen Oxford last year, for talking's sake, where you've got a Scott Nicholls and a Sam Masters at 1 and 5. It's important that the big races of the evening, your 13s and 15s, that you've got that potent two that can get you over the line in meetings, isn't it? Because if you don't do that and you set up a team a different way, it can be a real disadvantage. And I suppose when you look at what it's then surrounded with, that's where the strength and depth really comes from, isn't it?
Yep. To have two top riders at the top of the team and also have a bit of strength there, it's not always easy to put together. You're right when you say that the big two, the combination. What I did find last year was if we had a number one, we were, without being disrespectful, we were missing a little bit of backup for that number one. And when you're up against a Nicholls and a Masters, Sam Masters will just pin the rider on the inside. But see if there's 4 genuine 8.5, 9-point riders at the tapes, then the opposition's also got another rider to think about for Berwick this year when it comes to Heat 13. Because Craig Cook makes the start on anybody around Berwick. I don't see him getting by him. I don't see him catching him. He'll be gone. But at the same time, Peter Kildon will be there to give him a hand in the first bend or so. Whereas before, maybe Rory or Louis were fighting most of the time to try and get to that first bend themselves. Knowing that, as you say, there was top ends that were better than us. We kind of dress it up other way. I like the top two at the top. I think it gives you, if you go 6 points behind away from home, which sometimes happens quite a lot, let's not dress up. When we're chasing aggregate bonus points this year, which is, again, is always important for building points to the table, if you've got the choice of 2 top riders to plug one in somewhere, a lot of managers like to use Heat Night against the middle pairing away from home if you're down, and they can, on a good night, you could be looking for 22, 23, 24 points between your top 2. That's a great start. That's a great start. And then the rest of them do their jobs. I play about with things in my head and bits of paper and what I think we imagine scores, what it could be. I know a lot of other guys do as well. And it gives you a kind of firm idea. You say to yourself, well, he'll score this, he'll score roughly that. And you're saying to yourself, and if it does come the way I've got it in my head, we won't be far away when it comes to getting aggregate points.
No, that's exactly it, and that's what we want to hear. And when you look at the riders that we do have, it does look like it's going to be not just a good home track thing. These guys that have got experience in other tracks as well. I mean, I know it's been a while since Peter Kildman's been in the UK, but Craig Cook, when it comes to the northern tracks, he knows his way around them. And Danyan as well. Danyan's been here, there, and everywhere. Same with 𝗕𝗃𝗃. So, you've always got that. That if the top 2 in Cookie and Peter can really stamp their authority on the Shielfield track, their away form, you've got to say, will be pretty good, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as you say, I think Scott was saying that. Craig Cook, I think, finished on an 8.55 last season, so he comes in at 8.42. 8.55 without bonus points is very, very high standard racing in the championship. Peter Kildman comes in on an 8.5. Craig Cook, without the British reduction, would actually started at number 1 this year, but he gets his discount. And as I say, if the 2 of them can be round about there, I think at the end of the season with those averages, then we're in for a decent season. As I say, because I see improvement in Sam Hagan, I see improvement in 𝗕𝗃𝗃. I think Danyan should be looking to maybe do something. Bastian is maybe the one, if Sam Hagan was to push him to reserve, it might not be the worst thing in the world. Bastian's obviously coming back after an injury, but, you got to remember, even though he had 7 on his back, he was going out and winning Heat 12, 14s against opposite numbers 3 and 4. So I don't think Brian will affect him too much. He might need to start get his gating gloves on a wee bit more because it's maybe harassing in those sort of cases. But he's keen to come back. I'm keen to welcome him again. I think there's progress in him as well. I will have wee individual conversations with most of them and tell them what I expect, just in a way of trying to G them up. And so they're kind of looking over their shoulder so that they're keeping the guy down below where the guy who's actually below is pushing them. That's how I kind of do it, just have a wee individual chat, and hopefully they'll respond to it, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, we spoke to, I know you listen to all the interviews that we do to kind of get a vibe for some of the guys as well. And when we've been talking, I think there was one of the interviews that when they were talking about maybe pressure, a lot of the theme that was coming from it was that there's less pressure at 𝗵𝗱𝗃 and X, Y, and Z. And I was kind of keen to point out that although there's maybe less pressure that comes from it, there should still be the want there to kind of get to progress further in each competition and obviously push for playoff spots. Looking back at kind of last year, I think it was, forgive me if I'm wrong here, the end of August or the middle of August that we were complete, which was very early when you take into that. But that is a consequence of going out the BSN series, going out the 𝗕_Cup, not being in playoff contention, and really starting well and laying down a marker. I keep saying this, but when you look at I couldn't tell you the last time that there was either a League Cup group or a BSN group that 𝗵𝗃𝗃 actually got through. It really would set down a massive marker to everybody, wouldn't it? To basically start the season well, show Glasgow and Edinburgh, our local rivals, that we mean business straight off the bat, and really make a good start. Because ultimately, when you look at the BSN series, bonus points are great, but it's that one away win you need, isn't it, to basically get yourself through. You need one result away from home and you should be fine about getting into the next round, even if that's a lucky loser kind of scenario is a best second place. But you really need to be picking up points away from home, don't they?
Yep. On your first point, I think it was mid-August we finished, which is ridiculous. I think the English school holidays were still on. I know the Scottish ones, I think, we're just going back. But for us not to be racing then, again, pretty much our own downfall, because as you rightly said, we've not got out this BSN trophy. We know that Glasgow are predominantly strong now. Since the 𝗕_Cup era, they've been pretty strong, and they're very strong again. And they seem to always be reaching the semi-finals of that. As you say, we need to get in the mix between Glasgow and Edinburgh. And there'd be no shame if you were the second biggest qualifier, after the three sections, as you say, that kind of the next one up for points difference. We need to try and extend the season. We'll also get Redcar in a knockout cup again, another fancy team. But travelling wise, it's a good tie for the fans, I think, on both sides. You know what I mean? I know they've got a good heat leader trio, but I look at them. There's places we can hurt them. They'll think the same. But to not be racing after August, I think it will have made it an exceptionally long winter for the Bandits fans out there. The fact that we also don't start until April 9th. Well, we'll get press and practice April 12th, but subsequently we don't start our first meeting till the week after. I think that makes it even longer. Don't get me wrong, it's a good time to start. It's Easter Friday, Saturday. It's going to be busy, Glasgow and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 fixtures, but we did beat Glasgow last year. We beat Edinburgh at home, but we never took the bonus points in any of those fixtures either. We need to try, as you say, if you get an away win, you're flying. But when I look at the teams in the BSN, because that's ultimately what we're going to start with, we could certainly go there and give Glasgow a right good meeting. I expect us to do it the same with Edinburgh. But on the following night, on the Saturday, when it comes to us, I expect tough meetings again, if that makes sense, because you're not going to be dialed into your home track, but then it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get the boys really going into it. So time that we don't have, but the fact that we've got an excitement in our voice when we talk about it, we know it's getting closer. The 𝗵𝗃𝗃 team, for me, we could surprise a lot. I'm actually intrigued to see just how well we can do if the riders do the jobs that I think they can do.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting season, especially for all the Bandits fans out there. Me especially looking forward to it, and I honestly, Stuart, I cannot wait. Hoping to be doing interviews with you at the end of the night in a happy Stuart.
Yep. Well, that's the thing. As a happy Stuart all the time, but come 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, I go into a different mode. I've got a job to do. That's what I'm there for. And I think the riders kind of know that I become a slightly different person when the meeting starts, as probably most managers do. But if the guys are winning and getting results, it's an entertainment on a Saturday night we're trying to provide as well. But it's always more entertaining when you're winning, isn't it? And as I say, at the end of the night, if we're doing interviews and we're talking about how well this guy's done or how well this guy's done, that's what we're aiming for. I'm pretty sure our first night, first home match, the 𝗕𝗃𝗃 crowd about, because they will be intrigued just the way that you guys are and I am of how this team's going to pan out, because you never know. But I I'd like to certainly think we won't be in the same position we were last season.
Absolutely. Just final question, Stuart, because obviously I know you're a student of the game, as they say in boxing terms. Just looking at the kind of league as a whole, obviously there was a lot of chat in regards to team building averages and stuff like that. But when you look at the league, the championship as a whole, there's a lot of good, solid teams out there, and I think if I'm looking at kind of the sport as a whole, including the Premiership, I think we're in a pretty good place at the moment. And as you say, there's no easy matches. There's never any easy matches. I don't think the time that I've been watching Speedway at Berwick's level of the sport, there's always been entertaining racing. It's always been close. It's always, the teams have always been solid. And this year isn't any different. You've got your sides that people will fancy like they always do, because the name in the front will dictate that they're always going to be fancied sides within the league. But I would say the sport as a whole, Stuart, is in a pretty good place at the moment.
I would agree. Start with the championship first, Scott. When I won the league with Leicester in 2019, it was Glasgow and Redcar that was the sort of main sort of challengers. That was the sort of teams that were in thereabouts. I now look at the league last year, and you've got Oxford, you've got Poole, you've got Glasgow, you've got Scunthorpe throwing their hat into the ring as well, winning the Knockout Cup. And obviously, I look at Plymouth, got 𝗕𝗓𝗱𝗍𝗀, they've got Ben Barker, they've got Joe Thompson. But as you rightly say, I think this coming season, the championship looks good. I don't want to be critical, but I think it's been a league of two halves the last 2 or 3 seasons. You kind of knew the top 4 or 5 clubs was going to be Poole, Glasgow, Redcar, Oxford. They were going to be up there, and Scunthorpe. And then, no disrespect, Berwick, we're kind of down there. Edinburgh were down there. Plymouth were down there. Hopefully, I see a more level playing field this year, and I think that all the teams collectively have done well to put decent teams together. Edinburgh went outside a little bit and brought in 2 Swedish guys. Again, one we know very well, Victor Palavara. Don't know much about the other Grattan sort of thing. But Plymouth got 𝗕𝗓𝗱𝗍𝗀. Listen, he's going to be a good ticket seller for when they come to town against Berwick. Well, you're looking forward to our big 2 matching up against him. But even the Premiership, as you rightly say, it's getting better. It's definitely getting stronger. I look at it this year. 𝗕𝗓𝗱𝗍𝗀 has came back in as well. Michael Jepsen-Jensen, 𝗕𝗓𝗱𝗍𝗀's back. Thomas Buzulak is back. It's definitely getting better. The only air of caution I'd put against it is I'd like to see the crowds going up a little bit more, because for me, we're almost at everything reaches its peak in sport, and I think we're getting very near to the top where we can be in terms of team strengths. And hopefully the crowds will certainly come out and back it, because that was the only thing that was a bit negative was last season. I felt that certainly less the Premiership, the crowds didn't really come out to see the superstars that are back in the country. And as I said, if we can get the crowds up, every club will probably be nodding their head when they listen to this. If we can get them up about 10% next year across the board, then bringing these riders in is doing the job and the required effect.